which is a buzzword dropping right there, so get your attention maybe. But I think that's basically what it is. And when you think about it, and like a neural network, what we use in AI is based on neurons, which are in our brain. So we do a lot of this stuff with computers and machines, and Google is doing it all the time to figure out how to differentiate cat pictures from dog pictures. But we can also use this in our brain to help people improve their performance and also their quality of life. So let's make a little test and also a model of the brain that looks a little bit like this. And this is again something that is often shown in AI pictures. So we have some kind of input, then we have some processing in the middle, and then there's some kind of output. So let's have a look at this. What do we see here? Yeah, okay, yeah, there's no trick to it, it's just an apple. So usually your brain has seen this many times, and then it picks a certain path, and then it's 100% sure that's an apple, and then you say apple. So you get an input of this drawing, you get an output of that fits to this. So let's try it again. What is this? German word is also okay if you don't know the English one. Birne, yeah, pear, exactly. So in this case, we have a different input, and then some other paths in the brain are addressed, and we have a different output. Makes sense. So let's do a third one. What do we have here? Chart, graph.
Rising stock market.
Yeah, rising stock market.
Electric boats coming out from a laptop.
Yeah. See, we still here, but we need to make a bigger brain drawing for you. So yeah, the interesting thing here is we all have the same input, but we have different outputs. So this means depending on what's going on inside our brain, the same input will generate a different output for everybody from us. So it depends on how your brain is structured and what it has learned over several years. And this is quite interesting because thinking about feedback, this already shows you that the same information can cause totally different outputs for different people. And this is something to be understood, and this is not linked to being stupid or lazy or dumb. It's just matter of fact that this happens in the brain. So this is one fact to keep in mind. And another one would be this. I usually use this example of, let's say, a soccer team. And usually you practice, for example, penalty kick hundreds, thousands times, and it works just fine. There's an automatic path in the brain that usually does well. But then when there comes an external factor like stress, because you have to perform under pressure, because now it's the championship game and not just practice, all of a sudden the patterns in the brain don't work anymore as we had them working usually in practice. So also external factors can cause these patterns in the brain to work differently than we expect them to do. The same thing could be in the workspace. You have a phone call and it's not going well, and then you stress out, and this causes you to be angry 2 hours later still. So one way to understand this process better is a brain-computer interface. So the idea of a brain-computer interface is to get data from this part of the brain that we usually don't see. It's usually happening subconsciously. We see the input, we see the output, but we don't know what exactly is happening inside the brain, usually. And there's other ways to use brain-computer interface, but I will skip those and go right to what we try to do with neurofeedback. So the idea of neurofeedback is that we have this situation. We have an input and there's a certain output that is not acceptable for us. This could be a medical problem like depression. I have a situation that is neutral or happy, but the output I get is I'm sad or I'm afraid or I'm anxious. This could also be I'm sitting here trying to listen, but I'm getting tired, so it's hard to listen to what he's telling me. So this is maybe not the output we desire. So the idea is that when we use this data about the process that is happening in here and put it as a feedback loop back into the brain, then the brain could start working on these processes that are not working so well and then turn them into an efficient process again. This would be the idea of neurofeedback. To understand what's going on in the brain, put it in a way that is understandable for the brain as input, and thus creating a closed feedback loop that helps the brain to reflect the processes and optimize those processes. We'll talk about how it works in a second, or some have already tried it, but this is clear, right? It's a very simple scheme, actually. So what does it mean, or how does it look like? Well, we first have to measure what the brain is doing, and there's usually two ways of doing this. We don't want to know how the brain looks like, but rather what the brain is doing. We can use the EEG, which is the electric potential that the brain is generating when working together, or we could use an MRI. unfortunately, MRI is very big and expensive. Well, let's say a functional MRI. Regular MRI will not show you the activity. So functional MRI, this is very expensive and loud. And you could only do it in an artificial position, like cramped in a tube. Those who have experienced it, the EEG, was it pleasant or very unpleasant?
Pleasant.
Pleasant, thank you. Yeah, most people complain about the taste. Ooh, the taste. It's not that bad compared to an MRI scan. Okay, so this is one way to measure brain activity, and I would say it's a fairly cheap way and also an efficient way. So what we get is all those scribbly lines that show us electric potentials of brain cells that are communicating with each other. And so, again, I can't go into too much detail, but what we get out of these frequencies, or out of these lines, are those frequency bands. So maybe some of you have already heard those frequency bands. Let me still explain it because I think this is fundamental information about what we're doing here. So if we only had one brain cell, it would be very easy to look at this one brain cell and determine with which frequency this brain cell is sending information. Could be 1 time per second, 4 times per second, could be 8 times per second, and so on. So the hertz means how many pieces of information one brain cell is sending to someone else or to another center in the brain. So this means if you had only one brain cell, we could look at this brain cell and then exactly determine what the person is doing. If the brain cell is giving 1 to 4 informations per second, the person is probably sleeping. If the brain cell is doing 50 to 20, then you're somewhat focused. And if it's very fast, then you're maybe very focused or very stressed. Since we don't have only one brain cell, we have hundreds of millions. So we don't get one brain frequency. We always get a spectrum of brain frequencies over here. So for example, if someone's relaxed, we can see that a lot of brain cells are doing alpha activity. They're going this alpha speed. We see that a lot of brain cells are contributing to this speed, but it doesn't mean the entire brain is going in this speed. Yeah. And so we always deal with the spectrum. And when we say, oh yeah, we try to train alpha, then we try to get more brain cells to do alpha activity. Or if we try to stop, for example, stress, then we want less brain cells to be in high beta activity. So based on this, let's say, statistical spectrum of the brain, and this changes all the time, this can give us information about the current state of the brain, like we saw before. We also have a certain, this is supposed to be a map of the brain. It was drawn by Corbinian Brodmann long time ago. And he was just slicing up brains, looking at it, and making a map out of it. So that's also a great life achievement, I would say. And it makes sense, though. A lot of those areas in the brain still correlate to certain functionalities. So, for example, the speech is somewhere located here, and the vision is located here. So when you have a stroke and you lose this part of the brain, you can't see on one eye anymore. Very simple. So this means we also have a certain understanding of what the brain is actually doing and where it is doing it. And if you combine these information, we can get, for example, heat maps like this to show you, is the brain doing a lot of fast frequent activity and where is it doing that and so on. So this means with the EEG, we will get a certain understanding of what the brain is doing. So what can we use this for? Well, we see, for example, this graph, and this is also linking to the project Marcelo. This is the number of people missing work due to psychological or mental issues. Now, one could argue that obviously in the last 20 years there was more awareness for these problems, but this still shows you that this topic is more important and that more people are struggling with the cognitive and the mental work they need to do.
The last part is 2014.
2014. Yeah, maybe I should update it, but I imagine it goes up, you know. So, so we do see that more and more people are dealing with this problem. So it makes sense to find ways to prevent this from happening and to treat those who have already problems.
What are the lines in the chart bars?
Yeah,
different numbers.
So yeah, true. So yeah, so one is the actual days missed, and the other one is sorry, I have to look it up what it is exactly. Okay. Yeah, so the DRK-Gesundheitsreport. Can I cut it out? But sorry, need to look it up. But I think this is the days work missed only due to psychological problems. This is the number that makes sense.
Like Germany or
yeah, Germany. It's the DRK-Gesundheitsreport about German companies in general. Yeah.
Where can we find this?
At DAK,
DAK?
Gesundheitsreport.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. It was recently.
Yeah.
Oh, it was quite recent, I think.
They do it every year,
okay.
so you will find a current one too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, let's go with this. Yeah, we also combine two cool technologies, neurofeedback and VR, but also again, I will not go into detail with this. So, what is the neurofeedback? How does it work? I mean, I already explained the drawing of the brain, but the idea is the following: there's the person receiving the training or doing the training actually, and then there's a person setting up the training on the right, and you can see we have a constant measurement of brain's activity. Then this will be analyzed in the computer in real time and then put back in a feedback for the person. So in this game, for example, you have this meditating monk figure like on the app, and this will either fly up or will fly down, decided on which state your brain is in. So we need to define a certain training program. That means, for example, we could set up this program that the monk will always fly up when you're relaxed, or when you're focused, or when you're deeply relaxed. We could also link it to abstract parameters, like, for example, certain brain networks being more active together or less active together. So this can be linked to basically anything that is happening in the brain, and obviously we try to figure out what makes sense for you. So this is the general idea. So those of you who have already tried the app, it's the same thing. You have the muse on your head, it sends the data to the tablet is analyzing the data, and on the screen of the tablet, you will see this monk flying up or down depending on certain brain activities. So now this could maybe be the most important thing with another slide that I would like you guys to take home today. When we talk about the brain, we often tend to think that it's only a question of, let's say, willingness or smartness, or how much do I want it, or how eager am I to achieve this. And that it's a pure cognitive idea of changing certain ways the brain works. And what this shows you is it's called the Superkompensationsmodell. I don't know if you've heard of it. This is basically what appeals when you're doing physical workout. You're trying to train your muscles. So what you do there is you do a certain training. That means you use your muscle in a certain way. And you use your muscle more than your muscle can handle at this time. So there are tiny fibers in your muscle getting destroyed, and the nerves get tired, and the energy gets like wasted, or the energy goes down. And so at this point you stop the training and you feel very tired. And then your muscles send signals to your body and says, hey, there was a lot of movement today. It would be great if we could fix the damage done, but maybe if you go back to the yoga class, next time, maybe you could do a little bit more of what has been destroyed, just in case he has again that idea of doing that. So that means the muscle will build a little bit more of blood vessels, nerves, transmitters, and so on. And when you don't do anything anymore, you say, okay, this one time was enough, then this will start going down again and you lose the muscle or the cardio or whatever. So it means you need to find the right timing to do the same thing again and again and again and again. And this way you will actually achieve a higher level. Yeah? And so what makes sense a lot for training muscles or cardio, most people don't realize that the same will apply for your brain. When you use your brain in a certain way, not just making the decision, oh, I will be less stressed from now on, I will relax more from now on, I will be nicer from now on, I will be more, whatever, yeah, better in communication, feedback. This is only going up to here. And you need to do this. You need to actually use your brain in a certain way. And this can be mindfulness, this can be meditation, this can also be neurofeedback, where you have a very guided way of doing exactly this. This is also why most people, when doing neurofeedback, they don't get better and better and better within one session. They get more tired and they get worse. It's harder for them to produce this activity. It's also what some people find strange at the beginning. So we are really working out your brain like we're working out a muscle by doing neurofeedback. And this is very important because you can do this in many ways, but you need to do this and not just, decide, I want to change this, unfortunately. So with this model, we usually, this is how it looks, the neurofeedback when we are here. People staring at the monk, trying to make it fly up for 40 minutes and getting smarter doing it. So this is basically our job. You can try it on the tablet version. You can try it on the Carrera later on. So now another important slide, because this is one more thing we need to understand. The difference between implicit learning and cognitive learning or explicit learning. So implicit learning, or let's start with cognitive learning, is very easy. Cognitive learning means you understand something because I tell you the fact. If I, for example, tell you, I don't know, a taxi is waiting downstairs, you understand this, and this information is in your brain, and you can act accordingly. This is cognitive learning. I explain something to you, or I explain you how to program an app, and then you can apply this because I explained it to you and it makes sense to you. So a lot of stuff that is targeting the brain works with cognitive learning. That means you do coaching, therapy, talk about strategies, make new action plans. It's all cognitive learning. And implicit learning, this would be what you did a lot when you were a child. For example, riding a bike, pure implicit learning. Nobody would teach a kid how to ride a bike for 2 hours and the kid goes to the bike and just starts immediately to drive off with the bike. It's just sit down, try your best, and don't fall too often. You learn this by doing it. Same way you learn how you learn a musical instrument. I mean, I understand how a piano works. I just have to push those keys in the right timing and that perfect music comes out. I understand this, but I can't do it because I have no experience doing it. And this is exactly what we are trying to change with neurofeedback or meditation or mindfulness and so on. We actually experience certain states, and we also are allowed to fail at that. And then we go back and try again to go into the state. It's like the Carrera track, it stops, and then we try to make it go again and again and again. And this way the brain will actually improve. So I think this is one of our core missions, to get the same relevance to implicit learning for brain activity and brain processes like we have with cognitive learning at this point. So since I already talked way too long, sorry about this, I will skip over this quickly. So we do this for a lot of different people. We do this for patients, we do this for athletes, executives, and also creative musicians and so on. And you can read up on which medical problems you could use neurofeedback for, especially ones where the brain is, let's say, not working so well. When the brain is damaged, then it's way harder to really get a lot of success with neurofeedback. And then again, what you can do is, what you can try out in the room number 1 over there, is to drive the Carrera track with your brain's activity. And in the other room, you can try the app and the Muse headband. Okay, so I encourage you today to give it a try and maybe just try some stuff in the next days. Just try to sit down for 3 minutes and do an implicit learning exercise and not just try to decide to be more relaxed or more focused. Okay, enjoy the evening.
Questions now?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1 or 2 and then.
Yeah, 2 questions, okay.
This one picture we had with those different levels, alpha, beta.
Yeah.
There was one section more to right inside stress, and then the next one was increased hyperfocus.
Yeah.
So English or German?
What?
The language?
I think English is best.
Okay.
Okay.
So so if someone is stressed, is the average person better in focusing due to the graph?
Yeah, the reason why I put the word hyperfocus to gamma is because there is apparently one study, or maybe more, but it seems like it's one study that shows that some Buddhist monks, when meditating, had gamma activity showing up because they were in a very focused state. I would say that gamma is not a state that is pleasant when you're in it all the time, or at least when it's very prominent, because it's very exhausting for your brain to be so focused on nothing. Basically, this is also why meditation is hard and not relaxing while you're doing it. So this means, obviously, this can also be a stress state, and also the term stress, if this is done in the right proportion, then this is perfectly fine. But this is what is typically linked to stress, is too much high beta activity for those people. I have to admit too, it's more of a technical detail, that the gamma activity is a little bit hard to measure properly because it's getting very close to a frequency where we already have a lot of technical issues with the EEG, and also the gamma amplitude is very low. So it can be confused with just noise generated by the cables and so on easily. So this is why it's a bit of a tricky activity, I would say. Yeah. So I know the wording is kind of like mixed. One is positive, one is rather negative, but this is what it's mainly associated with.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Otherwise, you proceed, and we can talk later. No problem.
All right. Okay, thank you again for coming. I also want to say thank you to my lovely girlfriend, which is a big supporter of the project, and so many other friends. They're always supporting this project that is very ambitious. Before starting, I would like to ask you just some inputs. The main reason that you came today, but based on the information that you gather about money of good, what you are looking for or what you are trying to understand or learn, because this project has many levels of complexity, and we could talk like for hours to understand the economic aspect, the financial aspect, the meditative aspect, the cryptocurrency aspect. There's a lot of things connected. I'm going to try to go to the core, and then later we can explore. But just to have an idea in which direction should I navigate, someone wants to share what the expectations are.
Just on a very superficial level, because I didn't go right into it, but just the idea of meditation as more or less choiceless awareness, and then the money economic aspect, and then that mixed together. I was really curious to learn how to do that.
Same with me, and I'm also very interested in the cryptocurrency aspect.
Yeah, I didn't get how the money involves in that game, because kind of obviously people try to learn to use certain brain frequency, but then it will cost something, you get a gift, but then why is it with good money and other money bad money? Like the good aspect, I mean, obviously the outcome is good, but how can we judge and say that is good money, and when we spend money on other things it's bad or created in
This is a very important point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you generate money with this, is it just good for you, or is it used for somebody else's need as well?
I would say that's going to be good for everyone. That's why we call the good, which is the name of the currency of the common good. So you're going to see that.
I think you have to explain that connection that with a attention deficit hyperactivity syndrome, children will get the therapy and become more clear and focused and calm. The common good would be that the whole class and the teacher will also profit from it. So I think if you make some points like that for the common good, people will understand all the connections.
Okay. Does anyone have the chance to visit our website and read the storytelling?
Yeah, I read it yesterday.
Yeah, on the main page you have like a short story about the future. It's called The Vision of 2030. That tells about a guy who traveled to the future and then returned to tell how the future is going to look like when a platform like Money of Good is running and using the system to give a reward for people practicing. So it gives you like a really good overview about the project. And through the text, there's a lot of links where you can click to get like further information about different aspects, the Holochain, the sensor, and so on and so on. So this talk today is not just about technology, but it is essentially about the power of making dreams come true. Why I'm telling you that? Because I want you to go home very inspired that you can actually shape and design a better future. When you look at this picture and you see the moon over there, many years ago it was like a crazy dream to step in that globe floating out there. But in the 60s, some people took this dream and said, no, let's do it. And they gathered a lot of technicians, very smart people. People were starting to work hard. Of course, they got like a lot of investment to do that. But at that time, this idea was like absurd. It was completely impossible to achieve. If you imagine that the rocket, the spaceship, the amount of computer power was less than the older hand calculator, how they could think that it would be possible to go there. But it started with a dream, and some people believed that it would be possible. They started working on it, and they found a way, and then the man went to the moon. So the same way, everything that we look around here in our civilization, at a certain time, someone thought about that, someone engineered, someone designed, someone planned it to be the way it is. Except from nature, everything else was designed by humans. So it means that we can redesign, we can evolve over the patterns that we have today. And it's important to think big, to stop thinking about what is possible or what is impossible. Because, like this guy is saying here, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And this project, in some ways, it has this kind of craziness, because we actually believe that we can change the world. Of course, it's time to change. I believe that everybody shares this feeling that it's enough. Look at what we're doing to our planet, to the bees, to the oceans. There are a lot of scientists that are saying that we are on the deadline of starting to make a change, especially related to climate, the climate crisis, because then we're going to reach a point with no return. So what can we do? The problem looks so big as individuals. How can we address these problems in a world that is connected? How do we achieve this desired future? Because I believe that everyone here has a vision that how the future should look like, more equitable, more sustainable, and so on. But it looks like the people who have the power to make the change, they are not really interested on taking a step in this direction. So one way to approach this is the holistic approach. We have to understand that we live in a world that is completely connected. It's globalized. So this plastic folder that we bought today in the Euro shop probably was made in China. The avocado that you buy on the Edeka comes from Guatemala. The clothes the t-shirt probably was produced in Bangladesh. And each decision that we make has an effect globally. We are completely connected. So the problem is not in a nation, is not in the United Kingdom that now is trying to split to get away from the European Union. We have to address this problem in a systemic way. In order to do so, we have to understand which are the source of the problem. Because there's a lot of people doing an amazing job trying to fix poverty, pollution here and there, carbon emissions, and so on. It's like deciding when you decide not to use a plastic bottle, water bottle, when we have, it's a really good thing to do if we have our glass bottle or aluminum bottle and then stop buying this plastic. But it's not going to be enough. We are almost 8 billion people. And the companies that produce that plastic bottles, they are going to keep producing that. So how can we change the core of the problem? We have to think differently. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. You change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So this is what I was talking about before. There are a lot of people doing great job trying to fix here and there. But the system that brought us to this moment, this crisis, that you can link capitalism with many other ideologies and system, economic system, financial system. This whole system that turned the world in how it looks today. It's much more complex than fixing here and there. So we need to reinvent the system and offer people an alternative so they can start to go into the other direction. And then this old one, we get on site. We start to trying to fix because the mess is so big. We create a new one, and then we start to use a new one. So money of good is about that. It's about thinking a new world and how can you make this world so appealing, so interesting that people are going to say, okay, I prefer to live in a good world. So I'm going to start practicing meditation, using money of good. I'm going to start to earn goods, and I'm going to start getting into this new economic model. And this way we address in a holistic and systemic way. So that's why I told you that the project has this level of complexity. But for the final user, we're going to see that it's quite simple. Of course, I'm not doing this alone. This is the core team of Money of Good. There's a lot of more people involved, like Leandro and Marina, that now are in Bali making research. We have people in Brazil also helping. There are some guys helping Juan with the app. There's a lot of volunteers. We could have much more, but we're still seeking investments in order to provide some money for the people who are investing their time on working this project. I hope that Julio said that he would be able to connect with us today because he's the expert in Holochain, and Holochain is something super exciting. But I don't know if you'll be able to make it. I can give you like some insights about Holochain. So to summarize what Money of Good is. Money of Good is a social program that gives people the chance to earn money as a reward for practicing meditation. So imagine it's like a social program, that's like a social program that is run by the government. But in this case, it's decentralized. There's no one in control of this social program. And what it does is gives people the chance to earn some money working as meditators or investing time on practicing meditation. In this way, Money of Good will redistribute wealth, solving the problem of social inequality while improving health and rising consciousness. As Philipp was showing you the graphics, if you research a little bit, you're going to see the stress affects almost 80% of the population. And of course, stress is the main reason of many diseases and illness. Is a result of over stress lifestyles. In addition, the good currency will help to foster a new economic model, much fairer and sustainable. Is that clear for you? That explanation gives you a good understanding what is Money of Good about? Yes? No?
Maybe a question to make sure I understand this correctly. So this is a new currency, and this new currency is given to people who practice meditation.
Yeah.
So that's how you earn this currency. And then using this currency, ideally, you'll be able to trade it in for other things, just like you can trade our current currencies in for
dollars, euros.
Okay.
So imagine.
How do you want to achieve this redistribution wealth?
Now you're gonna.
How should this work?
Yeah. Now you're gonna take a closer look at it. So of course you already heard about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency that had this hype, but unfortunately, the currency was used more for speculation, like stock market. People were buying to hold and hoping the price to get high and then sell. So it wasn't actually being used as a currency to trade goods and services. Instead, to use like in Wall Street, like trying to make money just for holding some assets. So that's not the point. The good is going to be a currency. There's a lot of thinking on the strategy in order to prevent speculation. The way that people are going to be able to get the goods is just by sitting and meditating. And it demands practicing a little bit every day. So you cannot go to exchange and buy, give me 1,000 goods and I'm going save here in my digital wallet and maybe next year is going to, I can sell. It's not going to be possible. But it's going to work like a regular money. So this goes straight to your previous question. So the two main points that you are connecting in order to create a systemic approach is like looking to the financial problem and looking to the mind problem. Because many bad things that humans do in this world is just a lack of consciousness, it's a lack of awareness, it's a lack of sensibility. And through meditation practice, mindfulness practice, we start to get more aware of our responsibility of the world. We start to feel more connected with the living beings, with the whole planet. And of course, this wisdom comes from the times of the Buddha, but now neuroscience has proved the benefits of practicing meditation. So imagine, there was a famous experiment, I think it was in Detroit, in the early 2002, I guess, that they got like 10,000 meditators to meditate for 1 week. I can remember how many hours a day. And the levels of criminality in the city dropped like almost 10% with no other explanation. So you can imagine that it started to create a field of peacefulness. No, there's no way to connect one thing with the other, but that was what happened. So imagine if we could more and more connect people around the world, stopping every day to practice a little bit of meditation. How good it will be for their own health, for their relation with the society, and for their behavior with the environment. So that's why this mechanism of reward is based on meditation. And with these new technologies, we have a news, I think everybody saw the new sensor, which is a very affordable technology and is super reliable in a way that you can really measure the level of brain waves and reward the person who is practicing in a proportional way of the level that they achieve. We can really encourage people to start practicing. I have a video in our YouTube channel when I was in Brazil, by the way, I'm Brazilian, last year, and I took an Uber for an event. The traffic was terrible, super stau, and then I got a lot of time to talk with this driver. Young man, 26 years old, with 2 young daughters, a side job to help to pay the bills, very low level of education, absolutely zero knowledge about neuroscience, cryptocurrency, meditation, so on. I asked him, do you ever heard about meditation? I said, no, I have no idea what's meditation. Okay, and then I started to explain about this project, and I asked him to record a conversation. And I tried to make it very simple. I said that you are driving every day, so people get a lot of stress on driving the city, and sometimes they start fighting for nothing. So imagine if you could like breathe and get to a calmer state that is going to be very beneficial for your health, and then you're going to be paid for doing that, for investing your time practice. And he said, wow, how can I do that? When are you going to launch this? How can I start practicing? And then we start running this kind of interviews here in Munich and also in Brazil, like approaching people on streets and asking, do you want to try 5 minutes with the money of good application, and then you're going to receive some goods in return? And of course, because the system is not running yet, we said, and then you can exchange these goods with me in euros. And people, okay, this is strange, let me try. And even people, and most of the time, people who never tried meditation, after 5 minutes say, oh, this is cool, where can I buy the sensor? When are I going to launch the system? So when you talk about earning money or making money, people are willing to do anything. If I give like maybe 5 million euros for this guy to kill, I don't know, someone, I don't know, it's ethics, but some people will say, okay, I will do it. Or,
yeah, I think I love the irony of this, because normally people start meditation, they do not matter too much about money. Mm-hmm. So you get exactly those people into meditation who think about money would probably the last thing they would think about.
Do you know that it's a trick? It's like when you're fishing, you put the lure to catch the fish. So I used to play that if someone is really I forgot the word, when you really want a lot of money, greedy, greedy, and say, okay, I'm gonna make a lot of money, I'm gonna meditate 5 hours a day. So imagine the end of the month, it's going to be much more than each retreat of Vipassana that someone makes on the weekend. Then you're gonna be like enlightened on the end of the month.
But is it really the same effect if you enter meditation with this mindset? Can you achieve the same thing as a greedy person, really? Or is it just no?
That's the trick. Yeah, that's the trick, because when you start to put more energy or intention or time on meditation, you have the opposite effect. You're going to start to be less, because it's impossible. When you start to achieve your inner being and start to have this feeling of inner peace, you start to get to the point that your money doesn't really matter so much, because I'm feeling so blissful here, like looking to the sky.
Do you have this experience? Does people like him could have this experience?
I would not say that everyone, but I mean, if you look for the records.
There is interesting research by Richard Davidson, who will be here tomorrow next week in Munich, a neuroscientist, and he has shown that people, no matter how you enter into this never-ending process, but at some point, the regions of the brain who, for example, can be cultivated for more compassion towards other people and yourself, and you can show brain activity there, which is stronger after 8 weeks. I think
it's a side effect. If you are practicing like a regularly and with neurofeedback and with the systems of neurofeedback, that really helps you to improve your practice. I've been meditating for more than 10 years, and last year I got the news and I started practicing, and I found that in the weeks my concentration, my state of calm was much more stable. So if they want really hard to make money, the effect is going to be also, and even though that they cannot achieve, like, let's say, the peaceful way, just by sitting and relaxing, they're going to feel better. They're going to reduce stress. So in any way, it's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, I think if you think about meditation, you have two effects. You can either train for mental health or you can train for spirituality. If you take out the spirituality part of the equation, it's just like playing the piano technically, but you might not make it to a jazz musician. Yeah. But you would still learn how to be a very skillful piano player. And that's what you want.
I've been reading some articles that now in the Silicon Valley, meditation is super training. Like Google, Facebook, all those companies say, okay, it's much better to have our employees like with focused and relaxed mind and with burnouts. So let's create a meditation room. Let's bring some experts to training in meditation. And some of the reports that I read tell exactly that. Some of the guys like these started, okay, I'm going to practice, I'm going to be more focused, I'm going to be more productive. But after a while, the results start to change this perspective. So this is one of the main approach of the project.
One question, what will give the value to this currency? I mean, you will explain?
Yeah, this is the most tricky part. And then the other one is how to address the financial problem. Just to give you like a glimpse of the size of the problem. Imagine this is the whole world population. If we could split the wealth in equal parts. But in fact, what we have is this. 2% of the people of the world, the 7 billion people in the world, 2% have like 50% of the wealth of the world. And this amount of people is super rich as this. This is the amount that rests for the rest of the population. Here you can have a better look of the size. Here you can see trillions. So this is the population of the world, which shares 6% of the global wealth. You know, can you imagine how high go these bars? This is the 2%, the rich, which has the 50% of the global wealth. Look at this. This is how high it goes. So 300 people have the same wealth than 3 billion people. It's ultras. It's like it's really hard to believe, but this is the reality. can we imagine that these people are going to be willing to distribute their money among society? No, they don't want to change the game. They want the game to keep like this. So when I'm pitching for investors, they ask, what is your target group? I say, my target group is 9% of the population who wants money, like 6 billion. There are people that are struggling with financial difficulties, they're jobless, or they are just on the rat race. Some research tell that more than 70% of employees in the United States, they hate their jobs. They just keep the jobs because they need to pay the bills in the end of the month. What absurd waste of energy, talent, and so on, because you have to pay the bills. So you keep like doing some shitty job that you know that is not helping the world at all. So someone has a talent, but he cannot invest time in this talent because the talent is not going to feed their children. So it's really sad. But what we need to understand, just to give you, this part will take like much more time. I want just to give you an example because some people don't really understand how money is created or what money is. I've been studying this a lot. There's a book that I really recommend. It's called Sapiens from Professor Yuval Harari, which he explained the story of mankind from the beginning to the present moment. And then you can really see the framework of how our society developed this way. And there's a chapter just about money. So basically, money, it's like God. It works because we believe in it. It's just a myth. It's a symbol. For instance, I brought you a banknote of 20 Deutsch. Anyone remember this banknote? Yeah. So what happens if I go to a Halogen market and I try to buy some beer with this banknote? Are they going to accept? No. But it's real money. You can see here, there's the Deutsche Bank, it's a signature of there's the hologram, the watermark, and it's real money, right? It has no value because somehow this intangible value that was embedded, that was in this piece of paper, migrated like in reincarnation in this other piece of paper, which is very similar, like it's paper, has some colors, has the number 20, but it's written euros. And now everybody believes that this piece of paper has value. So if I go to the market, here's your beer, here's the money, okay. But it's also a piece of paper, so it's just a symbol. Since the Second War, there's no more gold reserves to back money. So it means that all the national money in the world is fiat money. Fiat means that it works because you have to believe. And of course, because everybody believes, it works. So it's a chicken egg problem. You have to believe to work. If you work, you believe, and so on and so on. But the thing is that there are some tricks, some strategies in order to put the value in a symbol like this. I've been studying how in 2000 they did the transformation of all the national currencies in Europe for a single one called euro. But what is more curious about money is that just 3% of the money in the world is physical. It's paper or coins. The other 97% is just a light on a screen of a computer, which is a number. But it's a piece of light in the screen of a computer, like this. This is money. It's a piece of light. There's nothing behind that. So when you make like transactions, there's a light that blinks in the other screen, just like this. What is even worse is that the money that is created for our society is not created by the national banks, just a small percentage of it. The most part of the money that is created by banks by making loans, which they charge interest. And so if this digital money has no existence at all. It's just a light. This other money that banks invent, they are not even real because they are just a promise of a money, which they profit by charging interest. So this is a really crazy thing. Now I'm doing a really, really interesting course about, it's called Money and Society, to really get deep into this whole scheme, because it's a scheme that they run in order to keep the world running like this and profiting a lot. That's why we have this inequality in the world. So this system is very well structured and it's really hard to change. So that's why we wanted to create a parallel system. It's going to be much more interesting for people like us. So if people start to play with our system, we can let them play with them. Just the 2% they can play with them.
But in the system are a lot of contradictions and illogical aspects and huge deficits, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's terrible.
Yeah. There's so many nonsense.
No, it's a total
Yeah.
nonsense. If
It
someone
is
gets in some time to watch some videos on YouTube, there are some really good institutions that make research. One is called the positive money. Like a real economist and scientist like researching this process, you cannot believe that it works because it's crazy.
Just
It's
because
absurd.
you believe in it, yeah.
But I think it's not so difficult to create that currency because Bitcoin was an example of it. It's just a common agreement that this has a value.
Create money is the easiest thing to do. The trick is how you can embed the value in that symbol. It can be called Bitcoin, goods, or whatever. So create is easy. You just go to the computer and put 1000, enter.
Yeah, not too many, not too fast. Bitcoin means some effort to create.
Yeah, a terrible effort. So, because now it's getting like common sense that meditation is something good. Even the taxi driver, the Uber driver, can understand that by meditating he's going to bring some good for his life. So probably people are going to be willing to start practicing if they could earn some money. So how the money of good works? Most of you have the chance to try in the other room. So we are developing our own sensor. It's going to be similar than the Muse that you tried. With this sensor through neurofeedback, you receive the feedback that helps you to develop your practice. This demo version, it's a simplified version. We are developing an application which is much more like a video game, like let's say Angry Birds or something like this. If you go to the Urban and you see that people like playing that silly games, it's going to be like this, but instead of just wasting your time, you're going to improve your meditative practice. So it's going to be really engaging and fun to play. So the time that you invest, the system can measure your brain waves, and based on the level of good waves that you achieve, you're going to receive in proportion the amount of goods for the time that you invest and for the level that you achieve. How will you?
Will it be the only company being able to produce this one? Because I mean, if it's proof of meditation, then it's cryptographically secured, and so like nobody can fake meditate. With this So will it be open source?
This was one of the main questions that I did to Caroline, our neuroscientist. Can I put the sensor on my dog, on a pig, or maybe in a watermelon, and put some electrodes and simulate? It's not that easy, right? Yeah, with algorithms and all this thing, we can really set a pattern that is going to be really hard to hack. And of course, you're going to take all the things that to prevent hacking the system. Of course, if you we are open for your suggestions. If you have an idea how to hack.
I have a suggestion for publicity because you could compare it to Bitcoin farming, which is CO2 emission negative, and you are very positive because you even reduce CO2 emission by farming.
Or I could imagine like farms of monks sitting.
They calm down, so
just slaves.
Meditate.
Actually, you will create matrix.
It's moving some money from the super rich, 300, to the others, for example, that people who still put like profit above humans, above everything, that finally they also do a little bit of meditation or get incentives. Because let's say a huge share of people in poverty start doing meditation, and they realize profit is not about everything. Like they realized back in the days it wasn't about just material, so they drop the profit.
We can realize that there's a huge difference of making profit, like
and having
money enough to have a good life.
Yeah,
food, your housing, like a school or medicine for children. It's not that you are making like 1 million euros per month. Like it's just enough for a good life. Because one important thing that when you change this mindset, this paradigm, is that why people are so stressed, and if they don't have time to spend like with their kids because they have to go to work like 7 in the morning and then return at 6 and take the small children with 2 years old from the kita or kindergarten. I don't know exactly. If you could meditate, let's say 2 hours a day and make your living of that, would you be willing to waste a lot of time in a company that will do like shitty, polluting,
and how do we convince them?
Or you be at home like taking care of your garden, like planting some use or playing with your kids and so on. Maybe you can find like a good balance if you have a choice.
And how the 300 richest are getting convinced into doing meditation because they don't have the incentive to earn money in meditation.
Well, I don't think
so the model doesn't work for them.
We don't need to care about them. I'm carrying it down.
Okay, later they come.
Yeah. Just okay. So after earning the money, now here you have like a very simple example of using the money to buy some drinks and snacks. But the thing that we are building a collaboration with the B Corp movement. Does anyone know what is the B Corp? Yeah? The B Corp is a certification. It's like when you go to the supermarket and you buy organic food, and there's like some labels and that a certificate that is like the true organic. So the B Corp, it's a kind of certification that companies that are willing to create positive social and environmental impact, they have to follow a lot of guidelines. They have this audition in order to fulfill all these guidelines and then be able to receive this certification. And big companies like Danone, probably you heard about the Fairphone. It's a company that develops smartphones that are fair and sustainable. Big companies, it's a big movement. Their motto is using business as a force for good. So there are companies that they, in their vision and their mission, they're thinking, okay, how can we produce what we want to produce, juices, food, clothes, but in a sustainable way that respect people, respect the environment. And this movement is growing and growing and growing. In the United States, the parliament, a few months ago, they approved some new laws based on the B Corp's statements, because they believe that in the near future, a company that not follow these guidelines is going to be out of market. So the companies need to reinvent themselves to work for the good of the world. So we are building a collaboration with this company. They are going to be the partners of the project. So in the beginning, in the day that we launch the Money of Good, if people go, let's say in 21 of December, we launch the system, people see on the news, they go to Saturn store to buy their sensor. By the way, our sensor is called Memo. Memo stands for meditation and money. They go to buy their Memo, they get it home, they open the packet, which is of course ecological and recyclable and so on. They sync in into the platform, they create an account, and when they create an account, they have already their digital wallet, the bank account, and then there's this video with the guidance, they start practicing, and then they earn some, let's say, 10 goods, and then they open the shopping app, and they can go online and buy a juice from one big corp, or cookies or whatever. So this way, on the day one of the launch, people are going to be able to start using the currency to making financial transactions.
But therefore, you have to switch like everything at once. Like, where do the big corps do their business with? How do they get their goods?
Yep.
They have to fight
Of
from
course,
which money?
those companies, they are not going to switch from one day to the other. So I'm going to explore this topic later if you still have time, that they are going to be investing in the project just a percentage of their products. Mm-hmm. We are going to start with 2%. So imagine Fairphone, if they sell like 1 million smartphones per year, 2% they are going to start selling accepting goods. And as the thing starts to run, they say, okay, now we're going to offer 5%, 10% of our products. Then when the good, like a lot of population is starting to have more goods than euros, okay, now we can split 50-50. 50% are we going to let people buy with euros, another 50 we're going to sell with goods. And it goes, but there's a design of this process. I can go and explain that later.
Are you doing an ICO, or how are you going to pre-finance the production? And if it's an ICO, do people need to pre-mine?
There's no ICO. No ICO. No ICO. No investors. But later we can also explore this topic. Okay, this is very important. This is, for me, is the most important thing about the project. What we want to do is create what I call the Kodak effect. I could also call the MP3 effect. What is it about? This points to that quote in the beginning, that you cannot change things by fighting the existing reality. You have to create a new model that makes the older one a bit obsolete. So, I don't know the age of some people here, but I remember going in a shop to buy these films, putting and running, and sometimes we screw up if you open and the light comes in and then, okay, it's ruined. And then you have to take like 12 pictures or 24, and you really have to choose which picture is going to take, hoping that it's going to be good. And then you take to the shop again and you pay again, and then you see the pictures. So Kodak was like the super big company, like ruling this industry in the world, super powerful company. Inside of the company, there were some guys developing this new crazy thing called the digital picture, digital cameras. And the executives said, no, this is never is going to work because it's so big, so expensive. The resolution is like ridiculous if you compare it to a film. It's never going to happen. But some guys believed, and they started to develop. And then there was a time when the digital cameras became with the same price, and then even cheaper than the original cameras. And of course, with a digital camera, you could take infinite pictures for free, and you can see it in real time, the picture, and you can change with filters, and you can share with your friends, and it's for free, and then people comment. So it's much more fun, it's free, it's easy. There are so many advantages that nobody had to fight against this model. People just realized that it's much better to take pictures with things like this. And then this company, they just collapsed. They couldn't change as fast as this movement. But there was another situation which was much faster than this one. When I was coming back from Brazil in January, I watched in the airplane a documentary about the MP3. Do you know that the MP3 files were created here in Germany by a German guy? So they were trying to figure out how to compress audio files in order to share, because the audio file with all information is super heavy. So he developed like formulas in order to shrink in a very small, like holding the quality. And then the nerds of the world, they found out about that, and they started to share music using these new MP3 files. But then eventually, one of these nerds, a guy with 16 years old, I can't remember his name, he decided to learn how to code, because they thought, I can develop a program to make it more easy, because in order to exchange the MP3 files, people had to know how to code a lot of things. It was a bit complicated. So this guy, he took 6 months of his life learning and coding, and he developed a program called Napster. Do you remember? Do you know Napster? And in months, the number of music that people started to share and exchange for free simply break the music industry. Companies like Sony, Warner, which they used to be like the rulers of the music industry, like with artists and CDs, because CDs was the media for consuming music, and you had sometimes the CD had like 2 hits and the other music was like shit, but you had like they say that the classic example is Vanilla Ice with the music Ice Baby. Is the other 12 musics are like crap. But people have to buy the 13 in a CD. So my point is that when this guy developed Napster, that made the possibility of exchanging music for free so easy, a lot of people realized, okay, why not? I want to listen to music. I love music. I have some Rolling Stones. You have some, I don't know. Tell me something that you like.
Broken arm.
Huh?
Broken arm.
Broken arm. And now let's change some music. And then all over the world, people start to change music. And then in a few years, the whole music industry collapsed. They just survived a little bit more because Steve Jobs created the iPod and a new business model, the iTunes store. That was a way to start selling MP3 files. Otherwise, those companies will be like totally crashed. So what we want to do with Money of Good is developing a solution, the technology, which is so easy to use. It's so affordable. The advantages are so interesting, so big, that people don't need to think twice, like the Uber driver. Okay, so I'm going to be at home with my kids, I'm gonna meditate 2 hours a day, I'm gonna feel relaxed, and I'm gonna earn some money. Please give me the sensor, I want to buy it now. And if we manage to do this, we can create this network effect, the Kodak effect. You probably remember the Pokemon Go effect, like a few years. In weeks, we had like millions of people on the streets, like trying to catch some virtual monsters on the streets. So nowadays, things go viral. And if people realize that, oh, this is good, this can be the solution, then we can go for this, to this, to this, and then for this, and then we create a global network running with goods. And it's going to make much more sense in a few years, because the evolution of new technologies like AI, machine learning, and automation is going to make a lot of people unemployed. This is a talk from the Singularity University. It's a university of the Silicon Valley that it's about the new technologies. It was in New Zealand, and this lady is talking about the future of work. And their research showed that in New Zealand, in 2 decades, around 46% of the population is going to be jobless, because the AI is going to replace the workforce. So imagine what those people are going to do. There's no other option. For instance, there's another research in the United States that tells that just the autonomous vehicles, the self-driving cars, that is about to be on the streets soon, 2 or 3 years. Not just cars, trucks, buses, and so on. They are going to make 23% of the population of the United States unemployed, if you consider the whole industry. It's a huge problem. Those people are going to make money. So that's why a lot of governments, people like Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, are thinking, okay, maybe we should create a UBI, a universal basic income, in order to maintain balance in society and the economy. So what you are going to do, you're going to invent more money, print more money, and distribute for free. So people can survive. They're not going to start crashing the supermarket to get some food. But it's a very controversial topic, UBI.
There are already like 2 or 3 countries using it, isn't it? There are already 2 or 3 countries, I think Iceland.
Yeah, they're running some experiments. Their results are very positive. They show that most of people think if you give people money for free, they're going to be lazy. But this news, it's about documentary that people are doing in the United States. They collected money to provide $1,000 per month for 12 families for a whole year. And they are shooting their lives to change. But what the experiments of their research show is that when people have the guarantee of their basic needs are stable or covered, they can relax. They start to think in a long future. They start investing in their own skills. Most of people start to learn something that they have no time to study. They start to invest time in some talents that they couldn't pursue because they have to do some shitty job. But the point is that if the government is providing the money, the power is still in the hands of a few. You can see the example in China, which is the Black Mirror in reality. They have this social index. So they have cameras everywhere. So if the light is red and I cross the street before getting green, I get like a penalty, and maybe my son is not going to have a school next year. We're not going to receive my UBI. So imagine the power, the control that the government is going to have if they say, okay, we have the money, you don't have jobs, we're going to give you money, but you have to behave. Otherwise, you're not going to have your money. It's a huge problem. So that's why money of good, it's out of it. That's why to use Holochain, which is the evolution of the blockchain, because then they're going to have no one in control, no one big institution in control.
What would Google do with our data, like also tracking every step we do today?
Yeah,
So
that
Google
they
is
can
very
control our lives.
powerful. You could also misuse power.
So in the near future, with a lot of people with no other choice, they are very likely to embrace money of good. Okay, I have no other chance to have money. Perhaps some countries are going to start UBI projects. We don't know. So what I want to, I don't know what time is it. Okay. As I said in the beginning, this is not just about technology, it's about dreaming. So the great accomplishments of man have resulted from the transmission of ideas and enthusiasm. So what we want to do with Money Food is make people feel excited about this possibility that we can actually change the world. If I could extend a little bit more the presentation, I would like to read some part of our timeline. What do you think? Can we go a little bit more, or can you go to the Q&A session? What do you think? Can I show you some vision of how the future is going to look like?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So imagine that you are like going in the streets, and this year is 2021, which is in our roadmap is when we expect to launch the platform. So December of 2021, it's almost a Black Friday. Black Friday, how crazy is it? And you can see on the streets, like in Uber, some posters like this: be good, meditation is the best investment. And then everywhere, like Saturn store, you can see the headsets. You can see on the television, like movie stars and people talking about money of food. So what happens is that, let me come here a second. On our website, here on the main page, you have the vision that I told you. This is this short story about the future. And if you go here to the timeline, you can see from 2016 when I started designing the main ideas of the project, and 2017 when it started. And I'm gonna jump to 2021 when you see the billboards on streets. So in 2021, The global launching is prepared. Famous people all over the world get involved. I want you to imagine this world. Famous people all over the world get involved in promoting the advantages of money of good in their countries. Excited early adopters disseminate the idea online and in their communities. Imagine like YouTubers and so on. The short movie starting with Will Smith and his daughter Willow that presents a beautiful future world shaped by money of good system becomes a hit, rising the interest of millions of people all over the world. Then we start the sales. 2022, many global companies, especially B Corps, decided to adopt the new currency and become commerce partners, expanding the range of the system and fostering the new economy. Marcelo Bohrer goes to Oprah show and receives support and he says, I want to go to the Oprah show. 2023, Money of Good is officially launched. It was the pre-launch. His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, for instance, last year our neuroscientist Carol was in Italy for a big neuroscience conference, and the main speaker was His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and she had a chance to give in his hands our letter. This is our origami letter with the vision of 2030, and we are sending for famous people in order to make them also excited. We sent one of these to Professor Yuval Hari, and he replied saying, "Oh, it's a really nice idea. Hope it works." So Dalai Lama, which is now a big fan of the project, he speaks to the world to promote the idea and how positive it is to integrate spirituality and with the material for the common good. Memo, the headband, starts to be sold globally by big sellers like Amazon, or we expect that we're going to make cheaper than that, $99. People receive back 100 goods, what enabled them to start making transactions with the currency right away, leveraging the new economy. I forgot to tell you that if you go to Saturn and you buy your head sensor, as soon as you sync into the platform and you create your bank account, you receive back the same amount of money that you invested in euros in goods. So it's a good incentive to start trading with the new currency.
And buy it on Amazon Smile, not on
Oh, yeah, of course. 2024. The system has a super boost when a large part of the population, unemployed and living in poor conditions, start receiving memos as donations of big institutions as the Bill Gates Foundation and UNICEF. Plus, multiplication of meditation banks. I'm going to tell you what is the meditation banks are. Allows people to borrow a memo, start practicing and earning goods, expanding the number of users to 1 billion people. This is interesting. In order to practice, you don't need to have your own sensor. You can go to a meditation bank, which is going to be like a bank, but with meditation, and you can borrow a sensor, or maybe poor communities, let's say a favela in Rio de Janeiro. The community collects some money, make a crowdfunding, and they buy like 4 sensors. And the sensors are in their like a community house, so people can go there and meditate half hour, connect with their own account, and then the Dona Maria comes and meditate half hour, and then Pablo comes and meditate, so they can share and have access to the sensor. 2025, accumulating 34 billion goods, the global funds of credit starts to foster the development of countless new local sustainable businesses, such as solar panels, organic farms, shared systems, etc., pushing up the new economy and making a solid positive impact on the environment. 2026, big financial organizations such as the IMF and big banks, Citibank, try with no success to block the growth of the new global monetary system based on the free currency good. They start to use power and disintegrate, like Kodak. You can see that happen with Airbnb when they started to spread this new system of renting an apartment cheaper than going to the Hilton hotel. The whole industry of hotels starting to fight with Airbnb to block their activity, but it's like it's a new business model. They cannot stop the technology. 2027 we are now, right? Mm-hmm. The good effects of meditation daily the good effects of the meditation daily practice start showing up people behavior. Some spiritual masters like Eckhart Tolle, Sadhguru, become loved guides that foster the development of the practitioners. Because Money of Good is open source, many companies develop their own apps and enjoy the new market, helping people to improve their meditation skills. 2028, the United Nations get together in their headquarters in Geneva, gathering leaders of 146 countries to sign up a resolution of making good an official global currency. The number of people on the poverty line is drastically reduced all over the world, and stress becomes something of the past. 2029, the positive impact of the new economy and the meditation practice transform life on Earth in many deep aspects. The feeling of living in a unified, pacified, and sustainable world sets down. A new flag is erected, and it has the symbol of Money of Good upside down, forming an E of Earth with the equal symbol in the middle. And 2030, the story of Money of Good revolution is told in 2019 as a time inception, which is the story on the main page. So this, my friends, why our meditation is your best investment, because it's double beneficial. You invest in your own health, and also you invest in your financial stability in this new economic model. So here are some contexts. I just want to tell you that the next step on the project is going to be the proof of concept tour that we are planning to do in São Paulo and also in Berlin. If we can raise the funds, we understand to other cities. And these events, we're going to be offering meditation banks, pop-up meditation banks, at least in 3 spots in the city. One in a poor area, like say in a favela, in a community center. Another one in a co-working space to get entrepreneurs and people with new mindsets. And the third location will be in a meditation center to get people that already have some experience on meditation. And in these meditation banks, people are going to be able to come to, like you did here, to borrow a sensor, meditate for a few minutes, half hour, doesn't matter. And in the end, they're going to receive the credits. At this point, you're going to have the whole application working properly. And then they're going to be able to buy some products from the B Corps partnering with the project. So we want to offer like the whole experience. And of course, we want to shoot all of this experience, run interviews, to produce a documentary, short documentary film to promote the idea even more. Because the idea is like in the end of 2020, in the middle of 2020, we're gonna open the crowdfunding campaign with the pre-sales of the sensor. And that, as answering your question, is going to be how we're going to start to raise funds to running the system. Of course, we're also looking for investors, donations, and so on. Till we get to the point when the system starts to run, we still need the dirty money. And it's been not easy to take this project because especially VCs, venture capitalists, they are very afraid of investing in something like this. So we really hope to get some people with open mind to help us like to really leverage.
But you could first maybe implement it on a small scale inside of a company where it is directly a reward for the company or again giving a good result to the company because the employees are more relaxed. So you make it on a smaller ecosystem first.
It's a possibility, but we don't want to do this inside of a corporation. operation. Because there's a possibility to manipulate the employees. There are some companies that are forcing the employees to meditate to make them perform better.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not intention. We want people to do nothing at all, just meditate and enjoy life.
What about using the health system of some more open-minded countries? Like, there is, it's not a big discussion that this helps people to stay more healthy. So there would be institutions which should be interested in.
Yeah, of course, they will save a lot of money with health insurance, of course. But you have to realize that the second biggest industry in the world is the pharmaceutical. So they thrive with the diseases. They don't really want to have people. They're not. That's why it's called a Krankenkasse. It's not a Gesundheitskasse. I just want to give you a glimpse about the Holochain because I know there's some people in Brazil watching us in live video over there. And I know that people want to know what is this Holochain? Because when I talked to Holochain, my girlfriend said, now that I really figure out what is the blockchain is, now you change it to Holochain. What is Holochain? So, in a very simple way, Holochain is the Tesla car of the blockchains. It's like the next level. It's a huge evolution. For instance, the first blockchain, which is the Bitcoin, the computer power for mining, for creating the hashes to secure the transactions, demands a lot of computer power. That's why people have to create these super infrastructures in order to mine the coins. Last year, the amount of electricity that they spent to mining Bitcoins was equivalent of the fourth country in the world. They expect in 4 years the amount of electricity to run the Bitcoin is going to be equal to the United States. So it's completely unsustainable. So the main difference, to make it very like in a nutshell, is that the approach of the blockchain is that you have this big accountable book, this big ledger, where all the information is stored in just one big book. So if someone in Brazil is going to buy espresso with a Bitcoin, everyone in the world must have a copy of this transaction, is going to create a hash, is going to be cryptographed inside of the chain, and all the computers are competing to find the right key. So the whole world, just one person is going to find the right key and going to receive some Bitcoins in return because he was mining, and the other 99% is just waste of time and energy because they could win the competition. So it's super unsustainable. And as it grows, it gets worse. Holochain has a different approach. Instead of being just one big block of information, it is user-centered. So the information is completely distributed among the peers. And each peers has a copy of a part of information that relates to that cell. So let's say if I go here in this bar and I buy espresso, just a small cell around me must validate the transaction. I need the whole world to validate the same transaction because it's not so important. I mean, this cannot secure that it was valid. So this is just like a simple way to explain the main difference, but it has a lot of implications. One of them is that with the Holochain technology, we can actually create a new internet, which is going to be really decentralized. Because even though that internet today looks like that is open for everyone, information is everywhere, the truth is that the data, the information, is on the hands of just 4 companies: Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, and Facebook. They have the servers, the clouds, where all the information is stored. So big companies like Fujitsu, which is a huge company, instead of building their own servers infrastructure, it's much cheaper to buy some space on the Amazon cloud. So Amazon has all our data, Facebook. So the internet is very centralized in a few. That's why they make so much money using our data. But with the Holochain, we can spread information all around. So nobody is going to be in control. You're going to be the owner of your own data. So Holochain is a huge revolution that is coming. And that's why we choose to be the source code, the source of the system of money flow, because this allows us to run this currency in an absolute secure way, decentralized, and much more sustainable and efficient. Because as the Holochain network grows, it gets more and more efficient. So it's the main difference. What else I have to tell you, my friends? Okay, this will take a little bit longer. This is the modeling of our transition. But I think that maybe we could give to another meeting. So I will open for your questions and a bit of discussion. If someone wants to go to the toilet, feel free, or grab some drink, pretzel, and so on. And again, thank you very much.
I have a critical question, so I'm not sure if you would be comfortable with this.
These are the best questions. Really.
Okay, or maybe you can tell us the critical things, because I would say if I would have the goal to just to get people to meditate more and to get more people to meditate, this is a bit overcomplicated. Because this, and actually just the products take much more time to come to the market. So if you wouldn't do it with blockchain, like without blockchain and without all the crypto economics and without incentivizing people with money, just give a better tool to people who already are intrinsically motivated to meditate, give them better tools, and then you will achieve more in faster time. So what do you think?
Sorry, I couldn't understand exactly what is the point of your question.
Are there better ways to get people to meditate than all this complex system with blockchain?
And what would be? I mean, it's not complex. I'm just giving money in exchange of practicing meditation. For the final user, it's going to be simple like that. I meditate and I receive some money in return, and then I can use the money to buy stuff. Simple like that.
Aren't you trying to achieve more than one goal? Because that's what I'm hearing. I hear you say that there's only one goal: get more people to meditate. But what I'm hearing you say is get more people to meditate and change the way we distribute wealth on the planet. So make living different. So get people to meditate, but also get people out of shitty jobs so they can meditate, earn their living, have time for their families, their kids, their hobbies, and live in a more sustainable way. So there are more goals that you're trying to achieve.
Investing time in something which has a purpose in their lives.
So there's more than one goal.
Yeah,
Right?
I would say that meditation is just a way to achieve that, because some people say, okay, if you want to improve health, why not encouraging people to make more sports? Okay, if they exercise, we also reduce stress, people are going to be more healthy, and so on. But the thing is that it's really hard to track the sport activity. There are so many different sport activities. You can put a sensor on your dog and make it shoot the ball, and it says, like, take a smartwatch, it's going to make you exercise. I don't know. But with this sensor, you can really know if someone is meditating and it's getting better and better. And of course, meditation has like a really deep implications in the way that you relate to life. So if you could encourage
and it can be done
meditation,
by anybody.
old people, diseased people,
which sports
yeah,
is always
and
limited.
most important of all, when you start to get that free time, and you used to do something else. But of course, the financial aspect is a redesign of taking this, as I showed you before with the banknote of Deutschmark U. That line with this absurd amount of wealth in 2%. They're not going to distribute. But if you could like take this intangible value and embed it in this good, we don't need that amount of money. We need much less. just enough for everyone to have a good life. If you're trying to go to the park with your dog and play with your kids, you don't need that amount of money. You just need people to behave good and to be good to the world and respect other people, respect nature. So this works, it's part of the same system.
What I heard was also, I think he was trying to make a point that the big project is trying to increase external motivation from a lot of people, which can make a huge difference. And then, but you wanted to say that there are a lot of people that have already a lot of intrinsic motivation for meditation, and why not giving them already tools and mentors and people who can kind of make the ideas and the awareness put into reality, like give them the tools, they can already change the world, and maybe they would already make a huge difference instead of like maybe increasing external motivation. Was that your point also? Like that?
I had like really many critique points in this couple of sentences, so they all valid.
We can talk like a priority later.
There's a good point with the people giving them tools. Like, how do you proceed from, if everyone would do all 80% more meditation, how do you make their visions and ideas and their awareness become alive? Like, how can they actually make change?
You have to think about large populations. Yeah. If you go to the topic trends on Google, what people search, what they are interested in, it's like a really see stuff. Yeah. Most of people they care about football game tonight, or some famous people who is cheating with someone else. Those people will never engage meditation. They are so engaged, they are so numbed with, and then they feel powerless against the system. So if I do my work and I receive my money, watch my football, it's okay. But when these new technologies are, and of course, it's not just the technology that is going to reshape the way we work and so on, but we are facing a critical disaster in our environment. If the bees starts to really collapse, you're not going to have food. If the bees disappear, in 4 years, the whole humanity is going to start with that, because you're not going to have food anymore. There's a lot of implications to that. So that's why we need to find a way to make a lot of people embrace this new idea. And the most powerful thing to make people move, run, kill, prostitute, whatever, it's money. Mm-hmm. So, but in this case, it's a good money, because it's based in the new morality, is based in the new vision of the future that's going to shape things in another way. And it's not going to be anymore in the hands of a few. It's going to start reshaping a lot of things.
But it's like, you probably know those studies, like with intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, like children who were paid for some fun activities, and then the activities become not fun anymore, and like your job, if you are only for money in the job, then you will start to hate it. And what if like your main assumption that this money system produces good in people when they start to meditate for money? What if it's wrong, and it will just spoil meditation and they will like hate it?
I would just suggest now on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we are going to there's a nice event here in Munich with Richard Davison. Yeah. You know who is this guy? I
just wrote down the name because
he's the most famous neuroscientist. He's like a brother of the Dalai Lama. That's his bro, the Dalai Lama. He goes to Tibet to put all these cap sensors on monks, and he's like researching mindfulness and meditation through neuroscience for many years. So we have a lot of data of how positive is the impact in many levels. But what I'm saying that we cannot secure that 100% of people are going to to evolve by practicing meditation. But if they manage to make some money and live well, and then it's much better than working a shitty job, because they're going to be at home meditating instead of worrying or producing more pollution and so on. Even if the meditation has zero effect in their souls or their spirits, even though it happens, it's going to be positive in some way. But you have to consider that people are not going to need to meditate forever in order to earn money, because as soon that we inject the certain amount of money in society, this money is going to start to circulate, firstly in the gig economy, and later in the small business, and so on. So if you can meditate just a little bit to have an extra income, and then you start playing your guitar because you love, and you start to go to the parks, and then you receive some money to play like in birthday parties and so on, or you like to go with your sailboat, and then you start to invite people and you charge some goods to take them on Pinze and so on. So the new economy is going to run with the other currency. It doesn't mean that if you start like a organic farming in your house in the, I don't know, somewhere around Munich in Ottobrunn, and you start selling tomatoes, you can sell with goods. So it means that your main source of income is not going to be just by meditating. You can do whatever activity you like to do. You can just have an extra income by practicing meditation with the system. But if you are like a super meditator and you want to do your Vipassana in a very traditional way, and you think that the sensor is going to borrow your aura and so on, then it's up to you, because the system is going to be free. If you don't want to use the system,
I can imagine, like, because you are competing against other people. So if other people can meditate better, then they earn more money, and your earnings become less, and then people might start taking drugs to increase their
we can make a lot of speculation.
300 will control and don't worry.
Does anyone else
How
has
would you
another?
know how much your neighbor makes every day with
But there
meditation?
is there scientific.
But it's like the market.
It's
There's
scientific
more money on
proof
the
that
market
this
than
neurofeedback is enhancing
And it is going to totally
meditate.
Sorry, it was quite loud. So no, it's okay. So you asked if there is a scientific proof that neurofeedback can improve meditation and so on. So there is. So neurofeedback has been around since, let's say, the 70s for human beings, and I would say neurofeedback can help you to improve your brain's flexibility, and this can also be linked to, like, there are studies that show that it improves your well-being, for example, sleep and ability to concentrate, but also cognitive performance for certain tasks and so on. So there's some studies, but to be honest, they have often been done with small groups, because it's just not that easy to make a comparable study with something like neurofeedback. So I would say there is scientific proof, as in studies, that it improves like the quality of life for people and also the ability for people, for example. So we have, I would say, per week we have 100 people coming here. So since we started, we have thousands of hours of EEG, and we have some people that we have worked with for 3 years, and they have been here for more than 100 sessions. And we could see that they were, for example, improving in school or at work, or just the way they felt, the craving or the need to drink alcohol to get calmer in the evening or to fall asleep, the consume of drugs or medication and so on. So I would say in general there's a lot of positive effects linked to neurofeedback, not by forcing the brain into a certain state that is beneficial for everything. I mean, looking at the scale I showed you before, there's valid states for every brain activity. So the easier it is for you to switch between states, and the more constant and energy efficient you can hold a certain state, the more abilities you will have, and the less likely you are to have negative effects from that.
But I would be interested in can you maybe after this session give me reference about research about this?
Yeah.
Because I would be interested also in a comparison when you compare this technological approach supported by neurofeedback to classical mindfulness techniques, if people really apply established.
Just to take the way, I don't think that there's a huge advantage of that. I would say, like the explanation I said before with the implicit and the cognitive learning, what I think is interesting about neurofeedback is that it addresses a way of interacting with your brain that I think no other technique can do. Because with meditation or mindfulness, the organ that is doing the mindfulness exercise is the brain, and the organ that is controlling whether it's done right is also the brain. So you have this problem that, let's say this hypothetically, there's always a part of the brain needing to control whether you're doing the meditation right or the mindfulness right. So you will never be 100% into the exercise. You always check, am I doing it right?
But I think it's an important part of the practice, actually. So maybe that's
exactly
point for the next level. But I would imagine that this neurofeedback is a good starting ground for beginners somehow. And then if you want to go
I would not rank it in a hierarchically or chronological order. I would say do both. Do both. You know, this is also what we try to tell people here. Yeah. Don't rely on this 1 hour of neurofeedback you do here a week. And don't, you know, when you, the other days you don't need a neurofeedback device all the time. You can just do it by yourself. So I would say do both, because as you said, it's different aspects and both have advantages and disadvantages, but still I think they all have unique aspects to them. So doing both, I think, makes a lot of sense. Just like Marcelo said, if you want to use the device, it's fine. If other day you will not use it, that's also fine. I can also send you some meta-analysis that summarize some studies, because there is interesting stuff, but then again, it's not better than anything else, but I think it's another valid option to do.
Yeah, supplementary.
Yeah.
Because of the time, I want to invite you, if you want, someone want to try again the systems, we're gonna still offer you the chance to earn more goods. I would also ask you to visit our website to get more information. We can get in contact by email. On our Facebook page, you can check the news. Every time that the project is evolving, we are posting the news. And it was an honor to have your presence here. I'm really happy to share this idea. I hope that it starts to spread around. So again, thank you very much for coming. Particularly with some crazy questions. Please take a flyer. Don't have take a flyer, because the flyer you can use to share it with you. And now it came out that you shut down
Und es noch viel besser, als so wie man es einfach beschreibt. Das heißt, ja, das einfache Verständnis ist, es gibt so den Superinflationszustand, der wirklich dahin kommt, und ich kriege eine Belohnung. Ich sage das auch laut, aber am Ziel der Interpretation, wir machen ja auch mit den beiden Unis ja Multifunktionsarbeit. Ich denke, es ist nicht so sehr drüber, was ist gut, was ist schlecht, sondern einfach, was der Gehirn unterschiedlich schaut. Also, was ist das eine und was ist das andere? Dadurch, dass der Gehirn anfängt, sich mit Aktivitäten auseinanderzusetzen, lernt es die besser kennen und kann dann besser adressieren. Das heißt, diese Idee von das Gute, das liegt hoch, beim Schlechten liegt es runter. Also wir hier, wir verlassen uns auch mehr und mehr. Aber das ist natürlich noch schwerer, den Leuten zu erklären. Weil wir wollen natürlich, dass ich vorgebe, was ist dein Zustand. Und wenn ich ihnen sage, pass auf, das ist einfach ein Spielplatz für dein Gehirn, wo es was sich selbst lernen kann, steigen natürlich viele Leute aus. Deswegen, du stellst genau die richtige Frage. Das ist auch eher, wir haben zum Beispiel auch eine Applikation, die ist ganz neutral. Da kannst du einfach was bewegen. ohne zu sagen, wo bin ich besser oder schlechter. Das Ziel ist dann zum Beispiel einfach, möglichst oft Zeit zu wechseln. Und das Gehirn quasi möglichst oft zu einem der anderen Personen zurück auszulegen. Ja, wobei das Auto ist jetzt ja auch so, dass es mehr was steht und natürlich will doch jeder das Auto mehr. Was wir eigentlich machen müssen, ist unser neues Projekt ist ein Grad. Da kann ich zum Beispiel sagen, die Aufgabe ist, dass du dann würde ich sagen, die Aufgabe ist, dass du was aufhebst, also der Kran nicht auf oder wieder laufen werden. Und dann ist das, was du aufhebst, in bestimmte Richtungen auszulenken, anstatt einzulenken. Wir hatten nämlich letztes nur 18 Spaß bekommen. Ich habe noch ich weiß auch schicker. Wobei, wenn ich nur Make-up habe, ja, wirklich. Ja, also die Stärke des Ganzen in einem da gibt es auch wieder Unterschiede. Zum Beispiel Emotionen oder Anscheinungen. Das kannst du sehr deutlich sehr stark so mit dem Brain Pattern. Das ist da natürlich nicht was gegen ein bisschen. Ich würde auch nicht so mit den Ideen sagen, okay, das ist ganz schlecht, weil es schon auch eine Anfälle haben, Stärken. Weiß ich nicht, Stärken, die das vielleicht programmieren. Ich soll lernen zu regulieren. Das heißt, ja, ich wollte nicht das lagert in diese Richtung vor. Aber auch da ist das klarer wird auch bestimmte Patterns aus, damit man beeinflussen. Aber es macht schon so, dass ich sage, es ist beides Learning, beide Richtungen. Und aber je mehr du beide Bereiche von dem Lebens, desto genereller wird auch das Leben. Ja, Unterschiede machen wir auch, zum Beispiel auch sagen, die machen 20 Stunden jetzt, das Training, 20 Stunden auch spannend. Da wechseln wir das Lebensstil dazwischen. Und dementsprechend werden auch andere Muster an anderen Orten gegessen. Und wenn du andere Muster da einhältst. Ja. Also, wie gesagt, ich würde sagen, ja. Ich würde sagen, ja. Und was ich jetzt aktuell da probiere, ich habe mit der Kollegin drüber, ist eben wirklich so, ich sag mal, wie baut man wirklich ein wie soll man sagen, ein Trainingsprogramm auf? Also fangen wir zum Beispiel mit einem Grundzustand an. Ich auch jetzt werden die Schulzeit zum Beispiel. Also ich bin gespannt, du machst ja immer schöne Fotos. Deswegen, wir sind natürlich hier irgendwo wie so eine Mission und dann quasi der Musik bestimmt. Aber vielleicht wäre es das, was wir gesagt haben, aber es gibt auch die Wissenschaft, was wir eigentlich schon sind hier. Wo Leute herkommen, dann ist ein anderes entwickeln, wie Fitnessstudio und Trainingsgeräte. Was die Rede heißt, das ist okay für diese Übungen, reicht, aber zweimal die Woche, einmal die Woche, wie es mal aussieht, schnellere Maschinen reingehen. Ja, das eine war so ein schickes Ding, aber als sagen, hätte ich dann noch ein Video. Aber wie gesagt, wir passen jetzt einfach
They have a YouTube channel. They produce animations with real data about sex, one about social media. 83% of all the shops that you go or
auch was. Da können wir zum Beispiel sagen, beim Auto jetzt zum Beispiel, die Uhrzeit ist nicht hier, aber auch hier entspannt, da fährt das Auto zum Beispiel. Also die Kommunikation ist noch spannend. Ich würde sagen, wenn man die Wahl hat, kann es meistens für Neurofeedback auch Neurofeedback anmelden. Also Neurofeedback ist schon eher etwas anstatt Neurofeedback, außer es geht um wirklich eine gezielte Ansteuerung von Neurofeedback. Und da hat vielleicht Biofeedback große Bereiche das Wort. Aber die Outline ist nicht Stressreaktion, kannst du auch oder auch die Herzratenvariabilität, das kannst du auch finden. Wie gesagt, zum Beispiel geht das heißt, ja, im besten Fall, wie gesagt, wir haben die Geräte, die kontrollieren beides, die kann ich anstecken, was ich will, und dann klebe ich den Sensor hier hin, hier hin. Da werden wir wieder angerufen. Dann gibt es ja genau sowas wie das wird aber auch Studio 1 ist es genau.
If a solution comes with this, you can boost this.
Ja, und wir arbeiten ja in dem Bereich hier nur für den Steuertechnik. Wenn der sich so umdreht, wir sehen zum Beispiel gerade bei ADS, die Anschriften verbessert sich. Das ist einfach eine gezieltere Anschrift.
And we already distributed goods enough in order to a single person has like money enough to
ja, also es ist tatsächlich so, dass wir verschiedene Typen sehen. Und zwar es gibt so den typischen Hyperaktiven, der wirklich eine ordentliche Übererregung hat. Es gibt aber auch eigentlich gute Erregung haben. Das heißt, da kommt die Konzentrationsfähigkeit davon, weil das Gehirn immer abdriftet. Aber es ist keine körperliche Übererregung da zum Beispiel. Das Ganze gibt es auch umgekehrt. Also deswegen ist es auch schön, diese Präzision deswegen der ADS, dann sagt man eigentlich gar nichts, sondern ich sage, ich gucke, was ist eben sein Muster, was macht